everybody got to the line okay. I'm sorry to put my shirts in one sense because I like to do it in the store and flood the store and watch my coworkers go, what the bleep is going on? And then we have like laughing and say, or the mundanes walk in and go, what the heck is going on? You go to the right side, where you're sitting, Brandon Sanderson crowd sat last night, and the Kendrick's crowd sat midnight. I think this crowd is, of course, far cooler. And besides bringing the point now, we're going to kind of flood the store so much it gets kind of hard to actually sell books to people. So anyway, thank you for coming. Got a couple of rules that I forget. When we get done at the end, we're going to do it row by row, so people in front get to go first. If you have a kid in a stroller or you have some other issue that you like will fall over, we'll try and keep you up front first and try to be fair about that. But otherwise, be patient, because you know he won't leave until you all get your books signed, because we've been here before. How many folks haven't been here before to see Brandon? Really?
Woo! Yeah!
Okay. Well, as you can follow the news this week, I offered to write the musical for Brandon's soundtrack. And I guess since I'm not the guy from Hamilton, Brandon Weiss has said, no. So, you know, we'll work on some of that later on. As you know, we've been doing this for years. Every year he comes up something new to surprise me. Of course, usually the book I ask for is the one he's not currently writing, just to make me crazy. On the other hand, he's actually delivering books every year, and like a couple other writers, like Shaq's name tonight. And the joke is starting to become, some of my fans went up, they're going to die before they finish their series. I hope not. We got power this year. We did get the fifth final Alcatraz book finally, which I've been waiting a long time for. We got the new graphic novel, and of course we know the new collection. How many folks have actually read part of the collection so far? It's not bad. Okay, so I won't give away any spoilers because there's some spoilers in there, and there's stories from all the universe. Other than that, I told myself I would not make fun of Brandon tonight, so I'm just going to give him the mic and let him go away. Please welcome Brandon Sanderson.
Thank you very much, Dwayne. Thank you guys for coming out to see me. For those who haven't been here before, I'm going to do what I normally do, which is I will start by blabbing at you. I'm university trained, I'm a professor, you give me a microphone, I will start talking. That'll be about 15 minutes. It's a little talk that I've prepared. After that, we'll do a Q&A. And so be thinking if there's anything you wanted to ask me, we'll do a Q&A, and then after that we will do a reading. The reading is from Stormlight 3, so yes. So that will be exciting. It's actually a very fun scene, so I hope you guys will enjoy it. So the speech part, the Professor Sanderson's part. I was talking to a fan recently about something he'd seen online. We were chatting about it, and it reminded me of something I had enjoyed studying when I was in college. You see, when I was in college, you'll find this is very common for writers. I had very eclectic tastes in education. I started in chemistry. I jumped out of chemistry and started taking a lot of philosophy classes. Until I realized the only thing more pretentious than a wannabe writer is a wannabe philosopher. And so I ended up then jumping to English and focusing on the writing. But the philosophy classes were great. They were very fun. There were a lot of ideas and things presented to me that were great. I did also spend quite a bit of time at college going to classes I wasn't enrolled in because they sounded interesting and they wouldn't let me in. But we won't mention that specifically because I just don't want to get in trouble with the university. So in my philosophy classes, there was one idea that is really cool that I found a lot of people don't know about, and it's a concept called Talos. Any philosophy students here? You guys know Talos. Only one in this room. You have my condolences.
BYU philosophy major too.
Wow. So yeah, Talos. Talos is this really cool concept that the old Greek dudes talked about, which is this idea that everything has a telos. The telos is its purpose. This relates a little bit to the idea of the forms that Plato talked about, which became an inspiration for the Cosmere, the three realms, because of the theory of the forms that he would talk about. And this idea of telos is everything has a purpose. It starts very simply. A chair has a telos. The telos of a chair is to hold the person who wants to sit down. The telos of my microphone is to amplify my voice, right? The telos of a pen is for writing. Then they would move on to say, okay, we can understand the telos of an object. That's pretty easy. What about the telos of a person? What is the telos of a teacher? To instruct, to teach. What is the telos of a doctor? To heal. What is the telos of a banker? To provide and lend money and things like this. And they would talk about this idea and the idea of how something's telos can be corrupted. They would say, if you take your chair and you carve it into you make beautiful carvings along the lengths of the wood, but then when you sit down, it cracks and dumps you to the floor, you have corrupted the telos of the chair. You have taken the chair away from its purpose and done something to it that ruins its purpose. If a teacher or a doctor starts thinking their telos is to make money, like maybe the telos of a merchant might be, then it's okay for the merchant to have this telos, but if the doctor has this telos, then they stray away from their purpose and it gets corrupted. There are problems with this theory, this philosophy, just like every philosophy. Nothing is perfect. But it is a really cool thing to think about. And I was talking with this fan. I realized I don't know what my telos is. Right? What is the telos of a fantasy novelist? And being the person I am, I spent way too much time thinking about this. I am prone to do that. And I thought, well, I'll try out some teloses and see if it's right, if this is the telos of a fantasy writer. So the first one I thought of is maybe that the telos of a fantasy writer is to teach, right? To instruct. Very lofty goal. We want to change the world and things like this, which certainly there is great fiction out there that teaches and things like this. And my fiction I hope people learn from. But I wasn't sold. Do you guys know about how C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien were in a writing group together? A lot of people know this. They would have these big discussions. A lot of people don't know that C.S. Lewis was the great Christian thinker, was actually converted to Christianity by J.R.R. Tolkien. In fact, Screwtape Letters is dedicated to Tolkien. And so they had lots of interesting discussions on philosophy. C.S. Lewis, if you've read any of his books, he obviously felt that a story was meant to instruct. His stories are very didactic. And they work very well in that way. Tolkien disagreed with him. If you've read the Tolkien letters and things like this in interviews, people would ask him, so, that Lord of the Rings thing, that's a metaphor for World War I, isn't it? Right? You were in World War I and you wrote a book about it. And you say, nope, not about World War I. I'm like, it really looks like a metaphor for World War I. And he resisted this. From the things I've read, he was very against people interpreting his work to have symbolic meanings like that, to try to get out of it meanings that he hid. He hated that. He wanted people to look at Lord of the Rings as a mythology, a fantastical mythology for Britain. That was his goal, and he said that, it's interesting. He said his books were fundamentally Christian, but that he would resist any attempts for them to teach. And I lean more toward a Tolkien philosophy in that I don't go into my books saying I want to teach anything specific. I write my books, people ask this a lot. They say, what is the message of this book? Well, I put the only message that I kind of think is a message into the books, where I had a character say that the purpose of a storyteller is not to give you answers. The purpose of a storyteller is to give you questions to think upon. I actually stole this quote from a sentiment I once read in an interview that Robert Jordan gave. That storytelling is, I feel, about raising questions, but teaching, I'm not sure. Certainly certain things, some do this. But I don't do that with my writing. It's not to teach something, it's to maybe raise questions. So my Talos isn't to teach. That's not how I view my writing. So the next thing I thought about was like, maybe my Talos is entertainment, right? That's kind of a bad word in a university setting, by the way, escapism. Ooh, they hate that. They're like, no. These are meaningful works, that you must be meaningful. I kind of like that books are entertaining, right? This is an important part of this. It's a mark of pride to me, and makes me feel quite good when someone comes to me and says, after a long, hard day where everything's going terrible, I'd read your books. And they make it better. Even when terrible things happen in the books, it makes it better somehow. Maybe reading about, Kaladin's crappy life makes you think, well, my life is... At least I am not running bridges on the shattered plains. So I do like this. For those who don't know, I am a reader and a writer today because of a teacher who gave me a book when I was 14. The book was Dragon's Bane by Barbara Hambly. And I was not a reader before that. And people kept trying to give me books, and most of them were these books that were quote-unquote meaningful. They always had, like, dogs on them, and then the dog died, and the kid was sad, right? They had shiny awards on the covers. I made fun of this in the Alcatraz books, if you read those. That was my life, and I was just like, reading is boring. I do not enjoy books. And so I fell in love with this book in part because of that entertainment value. Now, it taught me something. Dragon's Bane is not the book that should have worked for a 14-year-old boy. It's about a middle-aged woman having a midlife crisis. But her midlife crisis is about, I want to be a cool, awesome wizard, but I also have a family and I want to be a good mom. And this was a really cool conflict for me to read about when I know that my mother had the same conflict in her life. She wanted to be an accountant, not quite as cool as a wizard. But this book, it did teach me, but really it was the entertainment that sucked me in, right? My wife now, she fixes for her kids. She fixes smoothies where she puts spinach in them to change the color, she tells the kids, because you love green, right? And they're like, yay, green! We're eating green food! Oh, it's so cool! But she's really doing it to give them spinach. So I think the entertainment part of books is important. I think we discount entertainment. We say, oh, it's just escapism. There's no just with that. The fact that you can sit down and read about somebody else's life is important, and that it makes you feel good. It takes you to someplace wonderful. At the same time, I can't say that is my Talos. This is in part because of great stories I've read that I love that are in no way entertaining. Harrison Bergeron is my favorite short story of all time. If you haven't read it, Kurt Vonnegut, very good, but it is not entertaining. Okay? You walk away from that book feeling like you've been punched in the face. A good punch in the face, right? But it's not entertaining. And I don't see my Talos as entertainment. I think that's an important aspect of the books. The books should be fun. But I think, there is spinach hidden in them. It's not spinach that I set out to put in there, but every book has that. So I'm not sure if that's the Talos that I'm looking for. So the last one I kind of tried to settle on was this idea of going to a new place, of a sense of wonder and inspiration. I think there's something inside of all of us that likes to explore. If you look at the top movies of all time, all of them take us to a new place. Sometimes it's a place in our own timeline. Maybe it's on a sinking ship, or in the classic South, or things like this. But most of them take us to a new world, planet, or thing like that. And the top books of all time tend to do the same things. I think that we love exploration. We love seeing something new. And I think that's what I found in Dragon's Bane was I read this book and I went to a new place. And I think that is part of why I jump so much in my books. Another question I get often is, can't you just focus on the one I love, right? Can't you just write Stormlight? We love that you're a consistent writer. Maybe you could do one of these every year and get it done. Which I don't mind questions like that. They're very they're a sign of I think just the passion of the fans, right? But I explore in my fiction. And what happens is after I finish something and have done a number of drafts on it, I am so done with that book. I am so tired of that book. I don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. And this is very common with writers. And how I deal with that is I say, I now get to go someplace new. I get to try something completely different. I get to explore something very, very fresh to me. And this is where most of those stories in Arcanum Unbounded came from, was me needing to do something different to change it up. I found early in my career I did novels when I changed things up. That's where Alcatraz and The Arithmetist and Steelheart came from. They were all, I need to do something different. But what that got me into is promising lots of books and sequels to people. I found that every time I took a break, I wrote a new book and planned out an entire series, I was getting myself into a little bit of trouble. Number one question I get these days is, when is Arithmetist 2 coming? And the answer on that is that that was the last book I wrote before I turned around bleary-eyed because I heard some noise and a large freight train called the Wheel of Time smashed into me and carried me to Randland. I was not anticipating that in my career. I had not applied for this job. I didn't know Harriet or Robert Jordan. I just got a phone call one day, which ended with basically Harriet saying, "Would you like to finish the Wheel of Time? My husband asked me to find someone, and I would like you to do it." So the Arithmetist series got put aside. Tor had to sit on the first book for like 3 or 4 years, because I'm like, I can't support this right now. I have to do the Wheel of Time. Finally, they're like, can we really just publish this book? We really like it. But I've been out of that so long, I'm like, well, I'll wait until my son is old enough that I can read the book to him, which is coming up very soon, and then I'll write the sequel. Hopefully it will be soon. I do need to get back into it, but that's, the Wheel of Time had a big disruption there. But I realized I can't keep giving people novels that imply that there's a series. I either have to do standalones or I have to learn how to write short stories. And so I put a lot of effort into learning how to write short stories. And you can kind of read my progression in this collection, because one of the earliest stories that I tried to do is Hope of the Launtress, which you'll read in a little introduction. I actually wrote for my wife, who had a student who was my first fan that I know of. I was dating the woman who became my wife. She was a middle school English teacher then, and she had a student who read Elantris, loved it so much that she did this book report. Book reports were signed. She did one like the Dragonology book or things you see that's like got, little things stapled into it and hand-drawn pictures and like, a world book. And it's like this gorgeous thing, right? She must have spent months on this, where everyone else is like handwritten with spaghetti stains on it. This book was great, thanks. And so she gave this, and so I wrote a short story putting her into the book, and then gave it to my wife, partially to get some brownie points, I will admit. And then she gave it to the student, because the student didn't know my wife knew me, right? She didn't know my wife was dating me at the time. And so we actually gave that to us as our wedding gift. The girl did. She came, and so we have it, the book that she made. So that's chronologically in my timeline, that's the first one. I didn't put it first in the book because you'll hopefully see my progress as a writer as you read these things. You can read things like that. You can read the 11th Metal, the Mistborn one, and you can then kind of read things like Emperor's Soul, where I really felt like I was starting to get my feet underneath me, and then Edgedancer, which is the newest in the thing, can kind of show you this. So I've learned to write novellas to jump projects. Hopefully that'll keep me focused a little bit more. So yes, this exploration, this going somewhere new. Is that my Talos? Maybe. And yet there are stories I write and stories I love that don't go someplace new. So sometimes I just want to do something else. And it's so weird because I want to do all the things, right? It's one of my problems as a writer. I want to do all the things. And I sometimes can't do all the things. I try to do all the things. But I was really thinking about this. I was kind of I'm like, what is my Talos? The Greek philosophers would be able to tell me. Come on, tell me, Aristotle. But at that point, I was thinking about this. My son came up to me. He's 6 years old. My son is awesome. All three of my sons are awesome, but this one makes the best stories. You guys who are parents know there is one child who gives you the best stories. This is the son who, when he was 4 years old, we were sitting in church, and he picked the biggest booger out of his nose. Yes, I'm going there. And he was looking at it, and my wife, being the skilled mother that she is, had a wet wipe in her hand within, like half a second, and she swept his finger and got it, and he screamed in the silent part of church, everyone's sitting there quietly, "Give me back my booger." Mom, I was gonna eat that. Yep. If you ever meet Brandon Sanderson, if he ever comes on tour with me when he's older, you can tell him you heard that story. Dad's solemn duty is to make sure that he's embarrassed, because he sure embarrassed me that day. But I was thinking about this thing, and Dallin came up to me. And Dallin, he has figured out that I'm a writer. He started to put this together. It's fun to watch the kids as they realize this. Occasionally, another reason I need to get revenge on him is we'll be just somewhere random, and someone will be standing near us, and he'll look at them and say, "My dad's famous." And then, of course, they look at me and expect me to be actually famous, not mini famous, not writer famous. They're like, "Oh, what TV show is he on?" Dallin came up to me and he said, "Dad, you're a writer, and you sell books." I'm like, "Yes, that is how it goes. We sell books. Great. You kind of put this together." But then talking to him, I realized he didn't quite get it, because we get sent large boxes of books from the publisher that are my author copies to give away. And when someone visits my house, we take them to the garage to where all these are, and they get to pick out some books, right? And he had thought and realized what he came up with is, that is how we sell our books and make our living. Daddy sells books out of his garage, and then I have money for food. He put this together. He was saying this. He's like, "I know, this is how we get our money." And then he said, "Dad, I want to write a book to put in the garage." It was super cute. He decided to write a book about Minecraft. Steve from Minecraft. He's doing Minecraft, and then his house gets blown up by a creeper. And Steve's really sad, but then someone installs a mod to Minecraft that creates him a castle. So, it's a story of loss, and it's the hero's journey, the belly of the whale, and back up, And so I helped him work on this. It was really fun. I wrote out the words that he told me, and he drew the pictures and things like this, and then he wrote, the letters, because he had the thing to copy. And then when he's like, "Now we need to go print a whole bunch of copies of this and put it in the garage," which I'm not sure how we're going to do that. And maybe we'll put a stack of 5, and then when someone gets one, they can hand it back to me secretly. We can put it back in the stack. I don't know. He's adamant that there has to be a whole box of them, right? You can't just have one out there for people to look at. And so I said to him, "This is really nice of you, Dallin. You want to be able to help us, provide for the family. This is, because you were talking about the food." And he's like, No, no, they can just have them. I just want them to read them. And here my 6-year-old, right? Socrates would have loved this. Here my 6-year-old is closer to understanding the Talos of a writer than I was. I think we spend a little bit too much time talking about how important things must be, or what, I was focusing too much on what is the meaning, what is the deeper meaning, when the deeper meaning is something I think akin to what my son said. I just want people to read them, Dad. He was actually channeling Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde in The Picture of Dorian Gray. The prologue is my favorite part of the preface, which actually has very little to do with the story itself. It's an essay. It's a one-page essay, pithy as Wilde was, about just talking about the nature of art. And in it, he says, "All art is at once surface and symbol. Those who go beneath the surface do so at their peril. Those who read the symbol do so at their peril. It is the spectator and not life that art really mirrors." It's a really cool line there. And then he says, a little bit below, "We can forgive a man for making a useful thing as long as he does not admire it. The only excuse for making a useless thing is that one admires it intensely. All art is quite useless." Oscar Wilde, he was an interesting guy. Now, he also took lobsters for walks on strings until they died. And when people said, "You're killing that lobster," he said, "It gets to experience something wonderful and new. It's worth it dying." So, understand, Oscar Wilde, interesting philosophies. But I really like this concept that all art, as he's saying, is useless in that if you focus too much on the purpose of the art, you are missing the purpose of the art. Because the purpose of the art is to be experienced. That is what it's for. And it plays into my own kind of philosophy on my writing, which is that what I do is create something that is unfinished. No book is really ever finished until it is read and imagined in someone's mind. And you take it and you add life to the characters. You imagine them. You come up with their voices. People ask me, "How do you pronounce the character names?" I'm like, "Well, how do you pronounce them?" Because it's right in your version, in your head. That is the correct pronunciation for you because you are the director of this and you are allowed to make any edits to it you want to. This is in part because that's what I did. When I was a teenager, I was reading Anne McCaffrey books. And I started, Anne McCaffrey, great, everyone should read the Anne McCaffrey Dragon Riders, all of her books. I've read a ton of them. But she would have a side character come on, and something about my imagination made me say, that is secretly someone that none of the characters know who's doing something secret behind the scenes. And then I would read another book and I'd say, oh, this character has changed disguises and is now this person. And then I'd read other people's books and I'd say, he is there too. There's a giant behind the scenes thing going on. And then I started writing my own books and he jumped to them. This is the origin of Hoyt. Is me reading books and editing the story to add in my own character. And I think this is the sort of thing that is wonderful that people do. And I think it is part of the point. I think if I have to pin down a Talos of what I do, it is to provide something for you to finish, right? I write the script that you direct in your mind. My job is to provide something to be experienced that you complete in your own way, and it does mirror you then, rather than what my intent might be. And so, the end of this is me saying thank you. It's a sentiment I've repeated many times, but I certainly really do believe, and it is a thank you to you for making my art live and for fulfilling my own Talos as a storyteller. right, so boring part's over. We can do the Q&A now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking questions here and kind of work my way back to the back. And then I'll start in the back there and work my way forward. If I don't get to your question, feel free to ask it to me while in line. And I will answer it then, so don't feel bad. And my giveaways didn't arrive. I'm sorry. Those who've been here before know I usually throw something out to you. They're bookmarks this time, giant ones. But they got lost in the mail, I guess. We do have some giveaways out at front though. We have some buttons. Do we have any Stormlight books left, Dwayne? Did they all get away? We had the Stormlight Pocket Guide, which is like all the artwork from the Stormlight books, so you don't have to like keep flipping pages to look at the maps and things. They had a few of those, so if there's any left, you can. They're gone. Dwayne's like, no, those were gone after the first 5 people came in. But we do have buttons. We do have some Reckoner swag. Thank you. So, let's go ahead. What are you guys interested in asking me? Just raise your hand. Go for it.
One of my favorite moments in The Way of Kings is when Dalinar is having the vision of the Knights Radiant and they're descending from the sky and going into battle. I'd like to know the origin of that scene in your head.
Okay, what is the origin of the scene where Dalinar in vision sees the Knights Radiant descending from the sky as light? So I wanted to provide a contrast. This scene is not one that, this is one I came up with in outlining. It's not like one of those scenes that I hang everything on. Most of what you do as a writer, you discover as you do, even if you're an outliner like me. And this was a scene where I'm like, I need something to show the contrast between the world that Dalinar is seeing and the world he is living. And that scene was kind of the metaphorical starfall that felt like it would express the drama of the contrast. The dark night with the monsters and the bright radiance from the sky. All right, go ahead.
We've had great topics and discussions about this. If all of your characters were in a death match, who would win?
If all of my characters were in a death match, who would win? Honest truth is Kelsier. Yeah. You win? Yeah. This is because of most of the characters, Kelsier is the one that is ruthless enough to get what he wants. Others would not be as ruthless. Kelsier, as a character, is very interesting to me because he is the one. My kind of pitch on him to myself was he would be the villain in most stories, right? Kelsier, in a lot of stories being told, a lot of books that I would write, he's the villain. But in this world, at this time, it is what the world needs, and he is the hero. And so, yeah, that's why I say Kelsier. All right, let's move our way back. Go ahead.
Have you picked your creative ginger yet for finishing up book 3?
My creative ginger.
Get your creative juices flowing after finishing.
Okay, yeah. What am I going to take my break from this to do? Fortunately, I've planned it out. And what I'm going to do is the Apocalypse Guard. So Apocalypse Guard, I have to do something new. I can't go to so I'll probably do Apocalypse Guard and then a sequel to something, either The Rhythmatist or to Wax and Wane will be what I would do after. So those are both going to happen pretty soon. But Apocalypse Guard is my follow-up to Steelheart. So thank you for the opportunity to pitch this. So my one sentence pitch on this is, you're having a disaster, you call the Justice League, and they are all gone taking care of something more important, but you get the intern who has no powers, but she does her best anyway. The Apocalypse Guard is, in the Steelheart universe, people have discovered alternate dimensions, alternate versions of Earth, and what they find is most of these alternate versions of Earth are undergoing some sort of disaster. Something has happened in the timeline of the multiverse that is causing different varieties of disasters to occur that are planet-ending. And so the Apocalypse Guard is formed of a bunch of engineers, scientists, and people with extraordinary powers whose job it is to save the planets, right? They take like 8 months in planning. It's not like they just show up. It's like we put all of our effort into saving planets. Well, a disaster befalls the Apocalypse Guard, something or someone attacks them, and the coffee girl intern gets teleported to one of these worlds they were planning to save with no resources and 3 weeks until the world is destroyed. And everybody else is too busy dealing with the attack on them. And so it's her story on a planet that is doomed, trying to figure out either how to get off or maybe put the plan into motion that they had come up with. So there you go. Coffee Girl saves the world. All right here.
So, because we have world toppers like Floyd and Kirsten Nash,
Uh-huh.
and I think I've heard that Mistborn Era 4 will be more science fiction.
Yes, Era 4 is science fiction.
Yeah, so will we ever have a chance to see characters from, one world in the Cosmere go to another world in the Cosmere?
Will we be able to see characters from one world in the Cosmere go to another world in the Cosmere? Because I have mentioned that, so there's a couple things I need to explain to you guys in this one. First is that Mistborn, I pitched to my editor way at the beginning as a sequence of series in a world where a fantasy world slowly became a science fiction world, right? So we would pass through a modern era where things are like, our world, and then we pass on to a science fiction era. Because I'd never seen that done before, right? I'd never seen someone take epic fantasy and then build from the events in the epic fantasy, like religions and philosophies, and then tell another story set in a more modern and contemporary world. And then the science fiction one, the magic, will become the means by which space travel is possible. So we're in the middle of that. Wax and Wane is an interim. I'm calling it Era 2. There's an Era 3, which is 1980 spy thriller Mistborn. Cold War spy thriller Mistborn. Then there is an Era 4, which is science fiction, unless I slip in a cyberpunk, a near future science fiction, which I might do. So there might be 5. We'll see. I've warned people about that. But and the last Mistborn series, whichever era it ends up being, is the last thing of the Cosmere chronologically, right? So it's a long ways off. All the other books have to finish before I can do that, all the other series. The other thing people have to understand is that all of these worlds are connected in something we call the Cosmere. It is mostly right now just Easter eggs. It's important to me that people don't go, I can't read Elantris or Mistborn until I've read Elantris or whatever. No, each series is about that series. There's Easter eggs connecting them. But it is not about, you don't need to know it. It's just fun to find out. You can find it all out after the fact. Are we going to see people traveling between the planets? Yes, you will see space travel between the planets. You've seen it already. One of the stories in the anthology comes from that era, but it's on a planet that doesn't have space travel. And so Sixth of the Dusk takes place chronologically near end of the Cosmere sequence. So yes, you have seen it, and you will see more of it. So in Sixth of Dusk, there are ones they call the Ones Above, who have visited, and these are people from a planet that you have seen. I won't tell you who, but from a planet you have seen who are visiting. So you're going, oh wow, yes. So okay. So we're gonna go to this guy in blue. Has anyone approached me about making a movie? A few people are laughing because we did sell rights to the entire Cosmere this summer. Yes. Some people are terrified by that news. So what happened is there's a company that optioned the Emperor's Soul. Just itself. They really liked it. They're like, we're going to do Emperor's Soul. And they're a Chinese company, DMG. They've worked on Iron Man 3 was one of their things that they helped produce and stuff like that. So they've done some cool stuff. And I'm like, sure, I'll sell Emperor's Soul. And then they read Emperor's Soul. And they're like, this is connected to Elantris. So they read Elantris. And then they started reading, and then they dove into the Cosmere. And I still remember when I called one of the people from DMG to see how things are going, and he was just he's like, I just started reading the Cosmere, and I just spent 20 hours on the fan websites and things. And so they came back to me a few months later and said, "Is anyone optioned the Cosmere?" I'm like, "Well, Mistborn is under rights to someone, but the rest of the rights are available." So they started negotiations to buy the entire Cosmere. And then when Mistborn lapsed from the people who had that, they bought that too, to fold them all in, and then they made the announcement, "We have the Cosmere," right? People were very confused when they saw that we have the Cosmere because they were working on Way of Kings. But they didn't have, they worked on Way of Kings and Emperor's Soul. They didn't have Mistborn, which is the one that makes the most sense to do. They immediately put that into production, but they're further along on Way of Kings and Emperor's Soul. And I sold to them because they seem to get it, right? Anything in Hollywood is a gamble. I can't promise this will even happen. But anything in Hollywood is a gamble, but they get it. They understand the Cosmere. They're behind this. They want to do these films the right way. So I'm very excited and eager, and I will keep you guys up to date as we know more. Though, as a side note, every time something really cool happens to me, Pat Rothfuss, who is a good friend, Pat Rothfuss, kicks down the door, saunters in and says, "Hey, Sanderson, guess what? Lin Miranda, who wrote Hamilton, is writing The Name of the Wind. How does that sound?" So I'm like, "Oh, Pat, every time, yeah." So yeah, if you haven't heard that, Lin-Manuel Miranda, who the Hamilton guy is attached to Name of the Wind. So that looks like it's going very well is also. I'm actually very eager. I think it's a really good match. But it's just funny to me that like I make my announcement and then Pat's like, "Oh, by the way, better announcement." Yeah. All right, someone in the back over there. Yes, go ahead. And there's I was going to say the beard, but you both have beards, so I don't know. How many different non-human immortals are there on Roshar? Wow, very specific. So most of the Aeonians count, okay? There are both small races, but there are, enough of them that there are dozens of each that count as immortal, and they're non-human. The two living shards, I would say, count as non-human immortals, and most Spren count as non-human immortals. So there's a ton, okay? Were you looking for something specific? Okay, great. Okay, in the back, the young person raising their hand. Yes? If a Elantrian had a baby, would they be an Elantrian too? What a good question. The answer is no, actually. There's actually a character in the books who's an Elantrian who did become an Elantrian, whose parents were connected to Elantris, but that was seen as something that didn't always happen. So, all right, we're going to start in the back and work our way forward on this side now. Anybody in the middle? Okay, go ahead. Is Sadeas actually dead? Sadeas is dead, yeah. Yeah, Sadeas is gone. Dead on Sadeas. So, yes. Oh, Sadeas. Now, the new Sadeas is not dead. All right, right there in the maroon. Can a shard blade come back to life? This is something that has never happened on Roshar yet. Now, they didn't have many opportunities for it to happen in the past, because it was rare for a Radiant to break their oaths. And so it is not something that's happened, and the Spren think it's impossible. Right here.
Other than his home planet, what's Hoyd's favorite planet in Cosmere?
He probably would pick Scadrial. What is Hoyd's favorite planet in the Cosmere? Hoyd likes his creature comforts, right? Scadrial is the nicest place to live right now. And so now there are other places that are easier to get investiture, which is very nice. But, if you actually want to go to like a restaurant, Your options are limited, right? They've got some in Warbreaker World, Novelist, but you want to get a nice restaurant, go to Scadrial. You want a car service, Scadrial. And if he sits around long enough, you'll have instant noodles. Yeah. All right, other questions? Yes, right here.
Hi. When Ciri goes to the God King and she kneels and Bluefinger tells her everything that she's supposed to do, was he just making that up to cause a lot of tension, or was there?
Bluefingers. The question is, did Bluefingers make stuff up when he told Ciri? Most of what he told her is true. In fact, all of it could be construed as, if you heard it, anyone else heard it, they'd be like, Bluefingers might be exaggerating a little, but that's his job. And so I would say that yes, this is true. But there are people in the know who know that not all of those things are actually useful. But that's part of the cover-up and things. So, all right, right here. Yes.
Why do you teach and not just write full-time?
Why do I teach and not write full-time? What a good question. So I only teach one class now. I used to teach full-time before the writing took off. And there is a class called How to Write Science Fiction and Fantasy. And I just can't let go, right? What we did is we moved it to 1 night a week for 3 hours instead of 1 hour 3 nights a week or 3 days a week, and we moved it to a night class. So it's Thursday nights, and it's only one semester. We canceled all the other things of it, but I can't let go of, there's enough of me that is a professor that I need to get out of the house and do something. I can't just sit in my room all the time. And beyond that, I took this class in 2000, so 16 years ago. I took it from David Farland, who's come and signed here at UBooks before. And it was so important to me as a writer because my other professors were good writers and they could talk about writing, but they had never made a living as a writer, right? You can't, there's only so much if you want to be a professional you can learn from people who aren't themselves professionals. They know a lot about being a professor, and they know a lot about good writing. They don't know about how to take that good writing and make a career out of it. And when I took the class from Dave, when he said practical things like, here are tools you can use to try and get past writer's block. I'd never heard that before. In my other writing classes, it was things like, if you have writer's block, seek your muse. Go sit outside and stare at the clouds. Things like this that you get from an art degree. And Dave's like, yeah, if you have writer's block, try writing longhand. That works for me. Take a notebook and write in it. And try writing a first-person viewpoint monologue from one of the characters talking about their frustrations right now in life. And it works really well, right? If you've got writer's block, you're like, oh, let's talk through why the character's frustrated. Have them talk to me. Or, you've got writer's block. He'll say, you know what? Try just throwing something against the wall. Try having ninjas attack. Stuff like this that you're not going to put in the book, but it's just to get you thinking and writing. Practical advice like that. It's like if you want to publish in science fiction fantasy, you might want to go to World Fantasy Convention and meet some of the professional writers there and get their advice. I'd never heard anything like that. And so I feel it's important for me to continue this class. Dave moved off to try to make movies, and they were going to cancel it because they just didn't have a writer to teach it. And so I said, yeah, I'll teach that class. This was back when I had sold a book and they didn't know what to do with me. Right? Here I'm teaching freshman composition. I'm getting my master's degree in creative writing, and we're all dancing through flowers and talking about our feelings as you do in art degrees. Then I walked in one day and said, hey, I got a book deal. And it terrified all my professors. They had no idea what to do with that. They said, well, that's probably going to be your master's thesis then, Sanderson. And it was Elantris. It's my master's thesis. And so having somebody there who writers can go and say, how do I sell a book? What does an agent do? How do I make a character sympathetic? People don't talk about those sorts of things. They talk about the prose, but they don't talk about those things. So that's why I still do it. All right, over here.
Speaking of Dave Wolverton, Did he inspire you to explore unusual avenues of magic? 'Cause-
David, yeah, the question is, speaking of Dave Wolverton / Farland, he uses several pen names. Did he inspire me to seek out new avenues of magic? Because the Rune Lords is one of the best magic systems in fantasy.
So prior to reading you, that was the most unusual
Yeah,
magic.
it's definitely, I usually credit it as the best magic system in fantasy. So Dave the thing is, I hadn't read Dave until I took his class. And I was already, in his class I was writing Dragonsteel, so White Sand and Elantris were done. And so, yes, like reading his, I'm like, wow, I need to up my game, right? Garth Nix did the same thing to me. I read him during that era. I'm like, Sabriel's great, I need to up my game. I would step back and credit Robert Jordan in part, because you might say, oh, his magic system's a little bit soft, not as hard, but it was a lot harder than the things that were around the time. And Melioran's Sunrunner books were another big inspiration for that. And partially it was me saying, I don't think fantasy's doing this sort of thing enough. It's something I'm interested in and good at. I want to try bringing it to fantasy. But yeah, Dave's books, the Rune Lords, that magic system, it's incredible. All right, we're gonna do one last question right here in the front. Go ahead.
What was your design process for designing all of the star systems for each of the worlds?
Oh, the star systems for the worlds that you have in Arcanum Unbounded. What was the design process? So I'm lucky enough to have on staff one of my good friends, Isaac. He actually introduced me to my wife, right? He set me on a blind date with Emily. He was one of my students, my second year teaching the class. And he's a really good friend. He, at the time, was an illustrator for a video game company who was just interested in fantasy books. And he saw there was a class at BYU. He was like, I'm going to take that, right? And so he now works for me full time. Though, fun story on this. How late am I going? I'm so late, but it's okay. Fun story on this. You know how some people joke that in their marriage, there's one person they could cheat with, like a celebrity, right? When I hired Isaac, he's like, I will come and do things for you full time. But if Tad Williams ever asks me, I'm doing something for Tad Williams, his favorite book series. And so this summer, Tad Williams needed a map for the new Austin Ard books. And Isaac is like, I do maps for Sanderson. He's like, sure, do one for me, great. And so Isaac's been working on that, and it has been a dream come true for him. So Isaac and I, we sit down and we do brainstorming sessions for the art. He's done almost all of the symbols and maps in my books, except the ones that he commissioned someone else to do because he wanted to get a different style for it. Or the first book, which Elantris, I did the symbols. So that's why the Elantris symbols are not quite as visually interesting as some of Isaac's. They fit the world, but I drew those, and my artistic chops are. So Isaac and I sit down, we brainstorm, and we say, what do we want this to look like? What's the feel of it? And so I'll outline what the planets in the world are and stuff, and then he will bring up historical, like he went and got Renaissance star charts and said, do any of these work? What do you like? And we kind of narrowed it down to ones that had the right feel, but I said I want it more like this, and he took that and ran with it and gave me iterations. He's like, here's 4 different versions of a map for Scadrial, which one do you like? And then I'll give him that, and he'll then do 4 iterations on that, saying, here are different designs of this, which one of these do you like? Anyone who's an artist knows that's, illustrators, that's what they do. And so we come up with it, and then I say, this style, go, and then he does all the maps. So, all right, we are going to stop the Q&A portion. We will be doing the reading. You can ask me when you come through the line. The reading is a little bit short this time because I wanted to pick something that wouldn't be a spoiler for the first 2 books if you haven't read them, but is also not something I've read before. I wanted something new. And the chunk I found is great, but it is a little short. Before we get to it, I'm going to make a few kind of housekeeping announcements. The first is, I will stay here until everyone's books are signed. I guarantee I will still be here at 10 o'clock. If you want to go and come back, right? Is this okay, Dwayne? I'm not getting in trouble for this, right? Dwayne, no? You lock the doors? Why do you lock the doors? Just prop them open.
It's okay, I just told him over here, not over there.
Okay, yeah, okay. So we are here, so it's good. So we are here. If you're like in the, last in line, go get dinner, okay? Come back. Be here by 10, and you are fine, okay? Just keep that. You got about 2 hours that you can do if you're later in line. This will probably go until 11, maybe midnight, okay? That's not uncommon. We have pre-signed copies of Arcanum Unbounded. We can refresh them. So if you need to leave and you bought your book from Dwayne and it's still new, you can trade him for one of the pre-signed ones, so you don't have to wait in the line if you want to just take off. Okay? You okay with that? Yeah. Let's see. Where's Alice? Oh, hey Joel. How you doing? Where did Alice go? Is she around? Yeah, Alice is over there. Okay, Alice, are you doing pictures? Yeah. Okay, Alice is doing pictures tonight. So what this means is I want you to have your camera out and ready to take pictures. Don't set it on video. Someone always does. Set it on photo. Make sure you're not out of space on your camera. And then you give that to Alice. She'll be standing there. She's very conspicuous. She's a master servant, dressed as a master servant, so from the Stormlight Archive. And she's wearing her safe hand glove, you can tell. Yes. And she will count to 3. You just position yourself by me where you want to be. She will count to 3. I'm going to be signing your books already. You'll hand them to me. I start signing. On 3, I look up. It's like I'm a trained Pavlovian dog. You can watch, it's fun. People always snicker in line as they watch me. But I've been trained to look up at 3. I will look at you, snap the picture, and then you can come around and ask me questions or chat with me. But let's do the picture first. What I found is we spent way too much time with people fiddling with cameras, trying to get them ready, and not enough time interacting. Because this does sometimes go very fast. I like to do a nice presentation up front, because when you come through the line, it can get a little quick and things like that. So, photos, 1, 2, 3 will be good. We are limiting the number of personalizations you can have. You can have as many signed books as you want. I'm very fast with just a signature, okay? Please pick 2 or 3 that you want to be personalized, and we'll put a post-it note on those with the name to be written in them, so I can look at the name and write it down and still talk to you. Otherwise, I have to stop and think about the name and stuff like that. This will also speed it up and allow me to answer questions and things like that. So pick 2 or 3. If you have a sob story, your whole writing group wanted a book and you came to represent them, we can bend the rules. But I don't want to be signing 7 books to the same person. It moves us all through faster and things like that. Dwayne and ubooks are great. Let's clap for them. Dwayne had me on my second book tour ever. My first book tour was 2 stops. It was kind of a disaster. My second book tour, Dwayne was one of the people when I was touring who said, yeah, we'll have him. He sounds like a cool guy. And so ubooks has been there supporting me as a writer since before since Mistborn was published. And so I really appreciate them. I appreciate the work that they do and things like this. They are one of the stores that I send leather-bound books to when we do the special editions. There's only 6 or 7 stores that get those, and Dwayne is one of them who gets those. And so, if you want the leather-bounds, if you don't know about these, we do for Christmases a 10th anniversary of books. So we did Launchers last year and Mistborn this year. And these are leather-bound. They're $100. They're expensive. They have 24 full-color pages in them of my favorite covers of the book from around the world. They have brand new maps. They're printed in 2-tone. and things like this. You can look at the back of the Mistborn one. They managed to do a picture of me in two-tone that looks like a picture that's like, that's all the colors. It's really kind of cool. But they have the full color inserts in the front. They are leather bound. They are super nice. Dwayne has Elantris in stock right now. A few of them. You have two? What's that? You have second printing. He has some of the second printing. Want me to remind you. He has a handful of those second printing of that, and he has Mistborn for order right now, and we number the first printing. So the Mistborn ones will be numbered, and the low numbers get sent to the bookstores. So you have a chance at getting number 1. It's random where they go. So he doesn't even know yet what numbers he's getting. So he wanted to mention that you can get that. They will be to him in time for Christmas. We have them for sale on my website, but those we can't guarantee will get to you for Christmas because we're sending them out to the bookstores first, and that takes precedence. So Dwayne will have them for Christmas. He also wanted me to mention we have the 5th Alcatraz, which he already held up. Finally, that he's been waiting for ever since he read the first one in ARC in 2006, I think it was. He's been complaining that the scene that Alcatraz mentions in the first paragraph has never been in the books. And it's on the cover of the 5th book, so he finally got that. He has a few copies of Unfettered, the anthology that we did for charity that includes the last bit of fiction ever published in the Wheel of Time world. It's the story of Demandred in Shara, and it got cut from A Memory of Light because of length reasons and some other things like that. And then we put it on Unfettered in the charity anthology, and it is the deleted sequence from A Memory of Light. So if you're a Wheel of Time fan, you probably already know about it, but there you are. So you'll see all the awesome stuff he's got. He's got the box sets for the Reckoners, that are all 3 hardcovers in a box set. He's got the graphic novel, all kinds of fun things. So let's go ahead and get some water and then do the reading. For every Stormlight book, I pick a flashback character. This is part of the form of the novels, where I realized that a lot of epic fantasies start to blend together which book is which to people. They did that to me. The Wheel of Time, I had trouble remembering, is this book 4 or book 5, right? And so I came up with this kind of concept where I would start 5 characters in the middle of their life story in the first book, and then each book would flash back to how one arrived at the beginning of the first book. And the first book was Kaladin, the second book was Shallan, the third book is Dalinar, Zeth and Eshonai are the other 2 5. Dalinar has a whole flashback sequence in this third book that is almost done. For those who are wondering, it will be out next year, sometime around the fall. We're at 98%. Yes. The tour is slowing me down a bit. That was moving up much more quickly until I went on tour. But I did ride on the plane today, so we're getting very close. I'm writing the last few chapters. This that I'm going to read to you is not one of the Dalinar flashbacks. What I'm going to read to you is a flashback from another character that I hid in this book, even though it's Dalinar's book. Because Kaladin, I built enough to use extra flashback scenes from Kaladin. Kaladin's kind of the heart of the first 5 books. And so I built some room in that I knew wouldn't go in the first book to sneak flashbacks into other books, and there are actually 3 Kaladin flashbacks in Oathbringer. They're all very short, but they give a glimpse at the life he had before the book started, the first book started. And so I'm going to read to you one of those. Kaladin remembered a woman's kiss. Tara had been special, the dark-eyed daughter of an assistant quartermaster, and the one who did most of his work. Though she was a Lethe to the bone, she preferred dresses of an old-fashioned Thalen style, skirts that went down just below the knee, which had an apron-like front and straps over the shoulders. She'd wear a buttoning shirt underneath, often of a bright color, brighter than most dark eyes could afford, as dyes could be expensive. Tara wasn't rich by any stretch of the word, but she knew how to trade and how to squeeze the most out of her spheres. Kaladin sat on a stump, shirt off, sweating. The evening was growing cold as the sun set, and he basked in the contrast, warmth from the sun in front of him, chill from behind. His spear rested across his lap, but in his fingers he turned over a rock of white, brown, and black, alternating colors. That chill behind was suddenly banished as someone stepped up and hugged him. He rested a calloused hand on Tara's smoother one, drinking in her scent of starched uniforms and new leather and other clean things. "You're done early," he said. "I thought there were green vines to outfit today." "I have the new girl doing the rest," Tara said. "I'm surprised. I know how much you like this part." "Storms," she said, slipping around the stump he was sitting on. "They get so embarrassed when you measure them." "Hold on, kid. I'm not making a pass at you because I'm putting a measuring tape up against your chest, I swear." She took Kaladin's spear out of his lap, looking it over with a critical eye, testing the balance. "I wish you'd let me requisition a new one of these for you. I like that one." He smiled as she looked along the length of the weapon to make sure it was straight. She'd never trust it, as she hadn't personally requisitioned it for him. She wore green today, under a brown skirt, hair tied back in a tail. Slightly plump, with a round face and a firm build, Tara's beauty wasn't the type that immediately struck a man. It was more like an uncut gemstone than it was a sparkling emerald. Hers was the type of beauty that the more you saw of it, the more you explored it, the more you found that you loved it, until one day it struck you that you'd never known anything as beautiful. "Any young boys among the green vines?" Kaladin asked, standing up and pocketing Tien's stone. "I didn't notice." He grunted, waving to Gaul, one of the other squad leaders who passed by. "You know I like to watch for kids that might need a little extra looking out for." "I know, but I was busy. We got a caravan from Kolinar today." She stepped up to him. "There was real Shin flour in one of the packages somehow. I traded in some favors. You know how I've been wanting you to try some of my father's Shin bread? I thought we might fix it tonight." "Your father hates me." "He's coming around. Besides, he loves anyone who compliments his bread." Kaladin looked toward Gaul. "I have evening practice." "You just got done practicing." "I just got done warming up." He looked at her, then grimaced. "I organized this evening practice, Tara. I can't just skip it. Besides, I thought you were going to be busy all evening. Maybe tomorrow, lunch." He leaned over, kissing her on the cheek and taking back his spear. Then he turned to jog toward Gaul. "I'm leaving, Cal," she said from behind. He stumbled over his own feet, pulling to a stop and spinning around. "What?" "I'm transferring," she said. "They offered me an actual scribe's job in Mornswald, with the High Prince's house. It's a dark-eyed job, of course, but it's a good opportunity." "But," he gaped, "leaving?" "I wanted to tell you over dinner, not out here in the cold, but it's something I have to do. Father is close to retiring. He's worried that he'll end up getting shipped off to the Shattered Plains. If I can get work, he can come join me." Kaladin put a hand to his head. She couldn't just go, could she? Tara stepped closer. She stood up on the tips of her toes and kissed him, lightly, on the lips. "Could you not go?" he asked. She shook her head. "Maybe I could get a transfer," he said, "to the High Prince's guard." "Would you do that?" No, he wouldn't. Not while he carried that stone in his pocket. Not while the memory of his brother was fresh in his mind. Not while light-eyed High Lords got boys killed in petty fights. "Oh, Cal," she whispered, then squeezed his arm. "Maybe someday you'll learn how to be there for the living, and not just for the dead." She left him then. He got 2 letters from her after, talking about her life in Mornswald. He had to pay to get them read to him. He never sent responses, because he was stupid, because he didn't understand, because men make mistakes when they're young and angry, because she had been right. There. Thank you guys very much. For the sake of the cameras, let me point out, Peter, who is in charge of continuity for the Stormlight Archive, has not read that scene yet. And he finds something, yeah, Joel's laughing. He finds something in every scene that he's like, Brandon, you said this. So, if I have to change things, if I've, like for instance, if the High Prince's house isn't actually in Morn's vault because I can't remember, then there'll be continuity changes to that potentially. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna head out there. Dwayne wants you to stay seated, I think, until we get out there, and then he'll tell you how to go about getting your book signed.